Okay, welcome back. All right, so we have a question from Chaya. It says, personally, what are the challenges have I faced in youth ministry? Um, all the three that I mentioned, Chaya. One, I mean, I'm glad I learned about being patient very early on, to be patient, and time management also, at least in the first 4 months of being taking on the role. I saw how my time was beginning to being managed by everybody else but me, and so I had to put my foot down and say, okay, this is how I'm going to function. I'm going to work, and obviously, the huge part was discouragement. Uh, yeah, of like there is appreciation. People acknowledge. People are grateful for what you do for them as you serve in ministry and whatnot. But but the harsh reality of being a youth pastor is there is a lot of expectation from a lot of parents as well of the young people, and so learning how to navigate discouragement is very important. Like yeah, so those are actually my personal challenges that I faced in youth ministry. And also and it's very important that you recognize your strength and your weakness, and that's why having a core team is very important, because you I can't do everything by myself. I don't know everything, and so it is okay for you to say that I can't do this, I'm going to delegate. Like I'm not good at graphic designing. Is there anyone on the core team that is good or knows anyone who can graphic design? Like I'm not going to pretend like I know to graphic design. I'm not going to pretend like I know to edit a video, etc. And so people will appreciate that, and also you're again learning to manage time well. Like you're saying, acknowledging, this is my weakness. That's why I have you. Can you help me with this? And so people will also appreciate for that, instead of you pretending like you know everything and doing a mediocre job. Like okay, you don't have to put all this pressure on yourself. Like, I'm the youth pastor now, I have to do everything. I have to design, I have to edit video, I have to be exceptional content writer, script writer, this and that, and then end up being a very average mediocre thing. uh, Versus trust people, delegate responsibilities. And that's another thing that I learned, Chaya. So is know your strengths, know your weaknesses. If you have the bandwidth and the capacity to work on your weaknesses, great. But otherwise, everybody has their own strengths and weaknesses, etc. So yeah. Okay. Just to continue on from where we left off. So practical steps to overcoming discouragement. Now, some of the things that I kind of did to overcome discouragement is, number one thing is, be confident that you are not alone. Like as I mentioned from Joshua chapter 1, and our great shepherd is with us. He is with you in your lowest points. He is with you, just like how he was with all the people in the Bible. He has not changed. He has said that he will never leave you nor forsake you. That should mean something to us. Like in our lowest point, remember that he is with you. Okay, so be confident that you are not alone in this journey or in this race, a marathon of a ministry. Jesus is in your boat, so to speak. Okay, and another thing that helped me is find an experienced mentor. Find an experienced mentor, God-fearing mentor, with whom you can be vulnerable, not just transparent. Right? I think we spoke about being transparent and vulnerable last time, but there's a difference, right? So with whom you can be vulnerable, and who you've given the freedom to correct you when you are wrong, right? And also be able to share with them. So find an experienced mentor. Like ask yourself these questions: like, who inspires me, who encourages me, who confronts, corrects, and challenges me, not just criticizes. Criticism is not what a mentor would do. Like, who confronts, who corrects, but who challenges me, who convicts me, okay, who do I respect? Ask these questions and then find a mentor. I think it's very important that you have one. um, I personally believe that every leader should have a mentor that they can look up to and share. You know, it's like Elisha to an Elijah, or Elijah to an Elisha, like Moses to a Joshua, like that, Paul to Timothy, etc. Right? So it's very important. So find an experienced mentor. Be confident that you are not alone. Take breaks. Okay, Indian ministers don't seem to understand what break is. Like, okay, just 365, 24/7, like, non-stop. I will work for the Lord, work for the Lord, work for the Lord, work for the Lord. But if you don't rest, what you want to do, you will not be able to do in the long run. Again, looking at it as a marathon, right? Okay, because if I want to do what I am doing now for another 20 years, I have to take care of my body. I have to rest, right? I have to rejuvenate. And so have hobbies, whatever it is: swimming, badminton, play cricket, take a walk, have a hobby. Photography. Pastor Jakes likes to go watch birds. He's bought some nice binoculars. So that's his a time of refreshment. Like, he just takes his mind off. That's great. So have a hobby, something like that. Okay, it's very essential. It's not that you always have to be serious. No, I'm working for the Lord, and I'm just, it's like Prophet Jeremiah, who's a weeping prophet. Like, no, it doesn't have to be that. Okay, yeah, communication is important. The next point: communication between your pastor and yourself, and then communication with your audience. Okay, communication is a skill, so learn to be clear in your communication, because world wars have happened because of miscommunication, guys. Okay, so communication is very important. It's a skill. You can't just keep saying, I'm not good at this, I'm not good at this, I'm not good at this, I can't speak this language well, etc. No, it's a skill you work on. You make an effort. How do I communicate hard things? How do I communicate nice things? Right? When do I communicate? How often do I communicate? Okay, listen, leaders, it's very important. There is no such thing as too much communication with your team or with your audience. Like, why I say that is, especially when I say with the among the with the core team and with the youth, is, and let me take an example of my core team, is there's no such thing as common sense. Okay, there is no such thing as common sense. Why am I saying this is, what may be common sense to you may not be common sense to him. And so I will think, okay, we have to do this. It's common sense. So without me communicating it to the team, expecting them to do that, just because I thought it's common sense, and them not end up doing it, and then that causing me to be disappointed, is something that you want to avoid. Did you follow what I said? Yes. Okay. Did I make sense, guys? Okay. So don't assume that just because something is common sense to you may seem like common sense to everybody else. So communicate. Like, it's okay to over communicate as well. It's better than not communicating at all. I had to learn this because I am the opposite. Like, for me, if I say something once, I think, okay, it's done. Like, because if someone asks me to do something once, that's enough, and I will get it done. And so it's like my nature or my character that's conditioned me. And so I also think, okay, I've said something to Prince once, and I'm gonna, yeah, and then I leave it. Okay, I know he'll take care of it. But then Prince might not be like that. Are you with me? And so as a leader, I have to follow up. I have to communicate again. This is okay. Be clear as possible in your communication. Don't assume anything. Make sure what you're communicating to the other person, that they've understood it, that you've set the expectation right. Okay, this is something again I learned in the call center, is that when a person gives their address or a phone number, we call it as a reconfirming process. That if I did not reconfirm, let's say if Prince gave me his email address, I have to reconfirm the email address. To reconfirm, your email address is with the Navy call list, like, okay, P for Peter, R for Romeo, I for India, like, like that, letter for letter. I have to reconfirm. If I miss reconfirming, I'll be marked down. Why? Just to be like, I'm taking data, information, it has to be accurate, right? And so I'm communicating something, it has to be very crystal clear. And I think we take it for granted. We take this part of communication for granted. I thought you knew. I thought that's what I meant. But then, no, Pastor, I thought you meant this. Things like that might still happen because we are humans. But we try to be extra clear as much as possible, especially from the leadership role. So communicate well. Okay? And take care of your intimacy with God. Okay? So those are some of the challenges that youth leaders face. Right? Am I making sense? Or is there any other challenges that you face that you like to add? Youth leaders, oh, anyone? Even online?
Like something that I have seen is like when like in not maybe everywhere, but in some places, like the chance for people to experiment like the new things that they want to do or to implement, it is not given.
Mm,
It's like, like, no, you should not do it. We told you to do this way, you have to do this way.
mm.
Like it also makes people like, restricted from stepping out and doing some new thing.
Freedom, you
Yeah,
mean?
freedom.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Anything else? Anyone else? Nikhil? Francis and I had a conversation. Uh, no, I mean, during the break, he came and shared his challenge. But yeah.
Like whatever Prince was telling is true. Like the freedom is one of the most important thing, and on the other side, like whoever the existing ministry, like when you're saying you have to, in the line with the senior pastor, you have to know his heart, how what he want to do. And I think as a leader or a youth leader, we should be able to balance, that even our own thoughts, creative thoughts, and we should
Yeah.
not go out of that, that
Yeah.
line from the senior pastor.
Yeah.
So I think in whenever I heard from a lot of people also, I felt like this is one of the major problem happened. When this young leaders come, they want to do a lot.
Yes.
They want to do so many creative things.
Yes.
They want to change the whole world in just one day, but it won't happen like that. Like
Yes.
you are telling, it's a marathon, and we
Yeah.
have to take it slow,
Yeah.
in a steady way,
Yes.
and then we should not go out from this,
Yeah.
that senior pastor's line, like what his, because he planted that, he was, he established that, and he started in such a way that he wants, and then after we come, suddenly all of a sudden, okay, what you are doing is completely wrong.
Yeah.
So I learned and came. So I
Mm.
know I'll start. I think it's not the correct way.
Right.
We have to balance it.
Yeah.
We have to make him understand.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing.
Yeah. Great. Awesome. Okay. Some of the challenges that young people face in this day and age, just looking at them, we hear a great deal about it, and that is mental health in this day and age, right? Mental health, like how are they health wise mentally? Now, quite honestly, like, I mean, in my generation, um, I didn't know words like that, like mental health, but that doesn't mean we didn't go through it. Like I'm sure we went through grief, we went through depression. I know I did, because now I know what what I went through. Is like, oh, so what I went through in that year was actually depression. you know now we know, yeah, we can articulate it, right? We have the vocabulary to hey, birds are singing their songs, so that's okay. uh, but yeah, so one of the reasons what's causing, when just looked a little bit into what's causing these mental health issues, is the first thing was actually choices. Okay. They just have too much to choose from, and that's causing anxiety, stress, and pressure. Okay, one simple example, again, during my time as a young, and it's not too long ago. Okay, if I wanted to choose a bike, by a young, like a bike that is appealing to the youth crowd and all of that, there were three bikes that I could choose from, like some Pulsar or Apache or something, and there's one more other, Honda Unicorn. But every young guy would either have the Pulsar or the Apache or Honda Unicorn. It was very simple. Okay, Inky Pinky Ponky Father. It's like in paint. Very easy. Now, like, back then, if you have to choose a phone, Nokia, 1100 3310, sorted. Does it have a torch? Yes, it has a torch. Okay. Does it has the snake game? Yeah, it has a snake. Yeah, done, sorted. Now, which RAM? How many GB? Okay, what processor? This one. Again, not too long ago, career paths. Same thing, which parents have been singing. Okay, doctor, engineer, okay, something. Or after doing engineering, pick something else. It was like that. Again, now I want to take a break. I don't know what I want to do. Do I choose this? Do I choose that? Where do I go? Which pathway do I go, and etc. And they have all these pathways now, and they want to know the path that they're taking is the right one. And so there's too much of added pressure on them. So, and also the thing is, they're not afraid of failing, but they also want it to be the right path. Like, this generation takes risks like nobody's business. That's amazing to see that. Like, their appetite for risk it's not reckless, it's fascinating. Like, they're not scared to fail, but at the same time, they want to make sure that it's the right path. Are you following what I'm saying? And so all of this, like you tell me, okay, I want you to pick the best shampoo, okay, between 5 options versus 500 options. Which is easier for you? 5, right? See, it was so easy for you to even answer this question so fast. Why? Right? And so if I put you into a room, 500 shampoos, you're immediately overwhelmed by the sheer size of the room and by the options of it. Why? Because I want the best. I want to make the right choice. Are you following? Right? And so that's one of the challenges our young people are facing, this day and age, like their academic achievements, the need to accomplish. With that, you have things like loneliness. Like, they may have like thousands of followers on Facebook and Instagram, but they are still lonely. You can have hundreds and thousands of friends in social media online, but they're still lonely. It's such an irony, isn't it? Like, I mean, young people in this day and age can actually have a full-blown romantic relationship with another person, even without having met that person. That is crazy. Right? That's something else that's unheard of, but it's true. Are you with me? And so for them, an online relationship is much more real than an actual in-person relationship, so to speak. It's become that. And so that has also kind of put a dent in their need to connect socially in person. And because of which, there's loneliness as well. Are you with me? And so there's these challenges about choices, about their or the pressure about achieving academically, and they are feeling lonely. And at the same time, they, like we saw time management, they also want to manage their time well, because they have so many choices to do on a Saturday evening. Saturday evening for us guys, I mean, I remember I either played marbles or go play cricket in some ground that was there and come back. Those were my choices. Now the choices have exploded, right? I can do 100 things. So the young people now want to know that if I want to come to your church and attend your youth meeting, I want to know that if it's worth my time, because they feel this, like, this pressure of, okay, I don't want to waste my time. Are you with me? Like, they are pacing at the speed of light. The trends, we'll speak about trends in just a minute, but the trends are changing like that. So there's a study that says that the generations from between 1900s to 1990s, they only experienced change maybe 3 times, like overall, like change, like, like a huge change in, like, say, industrial revolution of something like that, like going from, and then in the late 90s when internet started taking over, since then change that the gap between the changes has reduced. It was, like, say, a decade, it became 5 years. It's now every day. Every day there's, like, whoa, when did this happen? It's like getting a shock in the roads of Bangalore. Like, yesterday these roads was open, today there's no road. It's like uh, so because of this constant changes and the change that is happening at such quick succession so rapidly, they're not able to cope up with all of that. Like, so who do I trust? What do I look at? What do I believe? Every day there's something about about sexuality, about the identity. Like, everybody's speaking, the billboards are bigger. Everybody's wearing this noise canceling headphones, but it's still loud, like, like metaphorically. Like, the signboards are brighter and bigger. Everybody is just, everything is loud, everything is speaking into their lives, but they just don't know which one to pick, and that's causing, like, crisis in their sexuality, in their identity. Negative media influence, like we just spoke about. For you to be worthwhile, you need to be beautiful, things like that. Sex is a recreational pursuit, there is no consequences, everybody does it, I can also do it. Violence and vengeance is an acceptable way to deal with your problems. Are you following, right? The third point that says absence of a father figure, or comes from a broken family, or from a family where there's constant violence, etc. That's absence of a father figure. It's the rate has increased drastically in India in the recent times. I, right? See, I tell you what, if throughout the Bible, the enemy has always captured or puts women in captivity, but men are killed. Okay, men are killed, but women are always put in captivity and whatnot. So he will put them in chains and bondages and whatnot, but he's after, like, men are on the hit list of hell, so to speak. Okay, like Moses was born, Pharaoh, 2-year-old boy babies, right? I mean, so the devil doesn't wait until they're, like, fully grown and whatnot. Same thing with Jesus. And so what's happening now in this generation is, because another stat that you can look up, and say in 2022, the suicidal rates in India, okay, women percentage is 28 versus men's 72%. That's almost 2.5 times the rate of women. So there's this pressure on man being able to provide, to protect, to do this, to be a certain way, etc., etc. And worldwide, that is, the rates are pretty much the same. Like the death of men are. And so what happens is, now because there's so much of increase in loss of men, younger boys, they don't have a reference or a compass to say, oh, so that's what being a man is like. That's what being a real man is like. And so younger generation are completely giving up on manhood, and therefore we are seeing things like woke culture. Like, okay, I'm going to identify myself as a woman. Are you with me? Because they don't have a reference point to see, okay, hey, so that is what a man is like. Are you following? Okay, so that is actually very scary, by the way. Okay, so all these challenges, uh, our young people are going through in this day and age. And the latter part of this, in conclusion, I've just mentioned some of the topics that you can choose or you can do in your youth ministry that can address all of these challenges that they're going through. And it's not an exhaustive list, just some suggestions there for you guys. Okay, I really want to kind of continue like from where we left off, about talking about, say, the absence of a father figure and the challenges that the young people are facing, going into chapter 6. Why? Because they're continuing to understand the youth culture, so to speak. Now, generations are originally or defined in 15 years of gaps between each generation, right? And so for us to just understand a little better, the generation that were born pre-1945 were known as builders, traditionalists. They were also known as the silent generation. Okay, and then the generation that was born after that, like after the war, are called as baby boomers or just boomers, between 1946 and 1964. And then you have Gen X, Gen Y, and Gen Z, who are like Gen Y is basically, that's where the millennials start, and then the post millennials, Gen Z, and now we actually have Gen Alpha. Are you with me? So silent generations were known for their sacrifices that they would make for their families, for their countries, etc., etc. Are you all with me? Right? This is very serious for us to understand all these things. But just imagine, men and women gave their lives during the war to protect our freedom that we are living in right now. And look what we made of it. Okay, the boomers generation were more consumerism, like they were more into materialistic things. Like, okay, because of everything that has happened after the war and whatnot, there was like a rise in economy around the world, and they started acquiring houses and cars, more consumers, more stuff, right? And then Gen X, looking at all these things, the materials that they had, they were still not happy. They were not happy with the quantity, but they wanted quality. Okay, and so there's all this. So why am I sharing all of this? Is like between 1900s, right, and the pre-war, the life expectancy was about 48 years, and after the war it is increased to 78. So what's happening right now in this day and age? For the first time, we have all these 5 generations kind of coexisting with each other. Before, like a few decades ago, it was 3 generations coexisting. And now, if you actually include Gen Alpha, it's almost 6 generations that's coexisting with one another. That means every generation wants to be heard. Every generation wants to be understood. Right? Like, I like listening to music from the 80s and 90s because not only do I like the genre of classic rock, it makes me feel nostalgic. It takes me back in time. It reminds me of the good old days, like, so to speak, right? It's, and so I hope you're kind of feeling this this thing, right, of that every generation wanting to be heard, wanting to be understood. With everything that is so loud in this world that, that's already happening. And the question remains, do we as leaders have the ears to hear the cry of our younger generation? Because they are screaming as well. So our call to youth ministry should be a heart which is very sensitive to their cry and responding to it. Are you with me? And so let's try and understand just a little bit more about who these millennials are. Like, again, understanding and identifying your audience. If you're catering to them, you need to know, like, okay, who are these millennials? How do they live? Like, how did they get here? Right? Where will their paths take them? What does their faith look like? Okay, so because now the young people are changing. They are changing emotionally, intellectually, socially, spiritually, morally. Everything is changing. Are you with me? Right? Uh, I'm sure you've heard an elderly person say, "In our time, it was not like this." Yes or no? That was only like 30, 40 years ago. Right? It's not like some 1,000 years ago. Right? Yeah, even we exactly. Like, oh, wow, in 2010, so like some 15 years ago, yeah, there was no Netflix. you know, just kidding. But but you see, the times have changed, and they will continue to change at a rapid pace. And all of these, like what I mentioned, their morality, their spirituality, their emotions, right, their intellectual is constantly challenged. They have all these questions about their spirituality, about morality, about their emotions. They just don't know who to ask. And so whatever they hear is okay. Okay, so this is what it is. So I'm going to go ahead with this today. Right? And which has led to a few trends among the youth. If you remember, in the last class, we said that all these major brands look at the young people for their trends to and design their products or advertisements accordingly. Yes. So some of the trends are secularization, gender revolution, privatization, pluralization, technology revolution, hyper individualism. I'm not going into the details of what it is. I've mentioned everything in the notes. But at the bottom, before the next section, it says by 2030, millennials will represent 75% of the global force. Will they represent 75% of your church? There's something for us, all of us, to think about. Right. So with all these things, is everybody getting it? Like, does anybody have any thoughts or questions that you want to ask or add? Is it helping? Like, is it making sense at least from what we're discussing? Yeah. How about those online? Are you guys okay? All right. Cool. Okay. So how do we impact the younger generation? I'm just using the word millennials because it covers their brackets as well. So now we know that millennials are a tech savvy people, tech savvy generation, like, and that's where most of the young people are. Like, how do we impact them? Like I said, Jesus went to the places where there were people, and so if we know that young people are online, like, design programs or something that you can come up with to influence those online. Are you with me? Like, and during the pandemic, we were forced to go become every church had to become tech savvy. There was no option. Like, pandemic taught us something. It compelled us to act on something that we've never experienced before, right? And so technology at that was the new Sunday. Technology was the new Sunday. And so be mindful of that. And again, coming back to this thing called leading with care is relational leadership. So this generation, the way they respond to leadership has changed. So in the chart, you would see um, five different, what do I say, points or different styles of leadership. Okay, so at the very bottom you have positional leader, like people follow you because they have to, right? And then there's the next style is permission driven. People follow you because they want to. Okay, it's in the notes. And third one is people follow because of what you have done for the organization. And then you have people development, which is people follow because of what you have done for them. And finally, you have people follow because of who you are and what you represent. This is taken from an excerpt from John Maxwell book on leadership. John Maxwell has like, I don't know how many books on leadership. Yeah, I would encourage you to do that. So now this generation will follow you for who you are and what you represent. And we are called to represent Jesus, right? And there's another book I would recommend you to read. It's not a Christian book. It's called Turn the Ship Around. It talks about, like a relational leadership, giving freedom, like what Prince was talking about. Okay, so there's a saying that says, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, right? So leading millennials is more about being the guide on the side versus sage on a stage. It's about sitting next to them rather than sitting in front of them. So these are the kind of leaders our generation is looking for. Right? There's a saying, right? We say lead from the front. Now it's like, okay, leading from the front is fine, but lead from being beside me. Right? Leading, okay, I'm beside you now, let's go. It's that kind of thing that's changed, guys. Yeah, there's quite a bit. He's going, oh gosh, what do we do now? Yeah. After every event, after every program, after anything that you do with for the young people as a team, have a review meeting after that, because it is in the review meeting where you will learn the most. It's not while doing the event; it's what you've done after the program. You will learn the most. And so some of the basic questions that we as a team would ask after, say, a youth camp, whatnot, we would ask, what were the good things? Like what went well, what, everything, what was bad, what went wrong, and what was missing? Did we forget something? Was there something confusing in our communication? Small things like that. Are you following? Okay. Does anybody have any questions, guys, before I kind of continue? And,
This is only for core team members. It's for all
no, this is for the core team members. Okay. So yeah, all this is about encouraging a younger generation to become part of a church community, a Christ-centered community, bringing them into our fellowship, baptizing them. That's what it's all about. And I'll just share two things, and I'll conclude with that. The two things that young people look for: one is culture, and the second is community. So culture, again, is just like time management. If you don't set the culture, culture will be set for you. Whatever it is, it could be good culture, bad culture, right? It could be culture of no gossip versus culture of gossip. Are you with me? So, what is the culture of your youth ministry? Like, and I wanted to, put it down in points to communicate and be very clear and say, uh, okay, this is the culture that we want to set at APC as youth ministry. Is hey, you come as you are. Like it doesn't matter where you've been, what you've done. Nobody's going to judge you on how you look, etc. Come as you are, right? And then encouragement, encourage one another, and communicate to them the why, as to why are we doing what we are doing. Let them know what we are doing is for them, not because I have this event on the calendar, right? I'm doing this youth meeting for you guys, letting them know why we are doing this. Okay, not because I'm the youth pastor, I'm getting paid and I have to give a report to Pastor Ashish at the end of the day. So, no, if they know that it's just another calendar event, they won't care. But if they know that we are doing this for them, they see the value in it. So you're kind of setting a culture there, right? An encouraging culture. And secondly, it's community. How do you build a Christ-centered community? Because community is very different from groups. What is the difference between a community and a group? Community has a relationship between each other. Okay. Group is having a relationship with one another. Okay. What is the difference between community? Community is very big. Okay. Okay. So let's make it very simple. The difference between community and group. Okay. Jachin says, learn from one another and help one another. Okay. Thank you. So it's very essential that we understand this distinction between a group and a community. Is a community will have a goal, will have a vision. We say LGBTQ community. We don't say group. They have an agenda, right? A community will have an agenda, a goal, a vision. Group is, we're going to have a get together. Guys, let's have some chai. Let's go. There's no real goal there. It's just about coming, catching up, and going. So your youth ministry can just be a time of get together, come, play games, have fun, listen, and go. Versus it's Christ centered. Yes, we will have fun, but there's a goal there. There's a vision where we want to go. There's a mission that we want to achieve. Are you following? So community and young people long to be part of a community. Okay. There is an image in your notes, in your PDFs, with a simple mathematical test. Can you see that? Okay. What about those online? Can you see it? Yes, yes, yes. Okay. So tell me, what's up? What do you see? Okay. All right. So be vocal, be clear, please. I'm not asking what is wrong. I'm asking what are you seeing? Like what are you seeing when you look at that image? What are you seeing? Okay. Anand? It's not some tricky thing, guys. It's like you're looking at it like some IIT.
This addition, like we can see that adding for one to another.
Okay, but what is your thing from observation from that? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nikhil, what do you all think? Jachin, Nina, what do you think? Oh my gosh, guys. Okay, so again, I've done this exercise many times, as you might already think of, with the young people, and year after year, every time I've taught youth ministry. Um, when it comes to this thing, the first thing, the recurring answer is one is wrong, one is wrong, one is wrong, the third one is wrong. I've never had anyone say there are three right answers. Never anyone. It's so it's to say is in a community, it can be become very easy for us to pick one mistake in a person and ignore three other good things in them. You already played this game. Okay. You're supposed to- yeah. So see, as a conclusion, right? For a Christ-centered community, it has to be a community of encouragement. Like it's very easy to see the dirt, as I mentioned. It's all available outside on the surface level, but to seek the gold and the diamonds, you need to dig deep. And as leaders, believe that every individual has gold in them, and look beyond the surface level observation of what it is to them. Are you following? Okay, we're running out of time, but yeah, let's stop here. So that is introduction to youth ministry, guys. And I hope there was something in the last chapter. It's please read it when you can. It's self-explanatory. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I hope this has been informative in a very little thing that we learned. All the best in your role as leaders in whichever ministry that you end up leading. Do it well. All the best. God bless you and thank you for joining. Bye. Bye. You're most welcome. Thank you.